So once again, thank you for joining us at Lawyer Up. This is being recorded, just so everyone's aware and we're all comfortable. And we have a great bunch of folks today to speak about this really important topic, parole and probation. I want to thank Out for Justice for joining BALT and hosting this, and thank everyone for joining. Nicole, would you like to do a little welcome from Out for Justice?
Sure. My name is Nicole Hanson Mundell. I am the Executive Director of Out for Justice. For those of you who don't know, an advocacy arm that is led by formerly incarcerated people, changing laws and policies, working to get people free, helping to navigate their legal cases, working on educating our people around voting work, and just like a host of things. One thing Kiana challenges me in my introduction is that I am also a proud member of the National Council for Women and Incarcerated Girls. So I gotta make sure I put that in my spill, every time. So thank you, sis. Today's discussion, many of you was with us a couple of weeks ago when we asked the Department of Probation and Parole to join us at an Out for Justice membership meeting. At that meeting, members came and was able to really talk about a variety of topics and questions around probation and parole. We thought it was important through the partnership we have with BALT and Lawyer Up, is that this is a space that allows for attorneys now to be present in our space, right? And it's also a space that we could focus on particular topics around these legal issues. So collectively, talked it over with BALT. We thought it was important to bring these two guests back, Mr. Nolley and Ms. Stweart, and also make sure that we bring back different voices to the table and these are impacted, people, specifically one of our longtime partners, Antoin Quarels of H.O.P.E, helping oppressed people excel, and bring back that healthy, rich discussion, but let's focus it on specific topics, because what we do know, Matt, and we talked about this and we went over this a lot, is that probation and parole is a hot button issue right now, right? And a lot of us who are navigating society are still dealing with probation and parole in some kind of way, whether it's financially or, whether it's checking in with your PO, whatever it is. Many of us are still dealing with the agency, probation and parole, and our job is to ensure that we are well informed about that entity, but also give voice to often a voiceless population, which is formerly incarcerated people. So for those reasons, we are so happy to have our guest here today to talk about a specific topic today around probation and parole, right, Matt?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I don't want to take too much time to talk about BALT, but Baltimore Action Legal Team, we do work for the Movement for Black Lives in Baltimore, and through a combination of like direct service providing, and including legal services and also education, such as Lawyer Up. We want to help empower the community, help people mobilize, and especially learn how to navigate systems that more typically oppress people, specifically Black people and other people of color. So I want to get to the panelists or guests today, but I want to say, if you're just joining us for the first time, part of the design for this space is for us all to be in community with each other. So there should be no like us versus them. We're all just people coming together to like learn from each other. And so I hope you feel comfortable just like chiming in if you have any questions or anything you want to say. but also feel free to show up however, that looks like for you. If you're just here to listen, that's fine too. And so, some of the guests we have are, of course, Antoin, Kaeshawn, and Walter. And so I guess whoever would like to go first, would you mind introducing yourself to everybody? What's a little bit about yourself, maybe how you work with this topic of parole and probation in your life, and why this topic resonates with you?
I think more specifically, before you all start, I think what we agreed that we wanted folks to talk about around probation and parole was more of the incentive piece, right? I thought that that really stuck out to people, Mr. Nolley and Ms. Stweart and Antoin. People were very, very interested in how they accumulate good credits while they are home. And if we go off, we go off a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that this was, we put that out there in the beginning, that this was more of a refined conversation around some different specific topics for probation and parole, as opposed to the structure that OFJ offered, which just was just go, right? So well, let's start with the impacted voice. Let's start with Mr. Antoin from H.O.P.E with an introduction.
Yeah, I'm Antoin Quarels. Like I say, founder of H.O.P.E Baltimore, helping oppressed people excel, with sustained support for those formerly impacted, returning back to the community with barriers and being empowered by the education of those barriers and how to navigate and connect with resources that directs them and gives them a stable and safe transition. Like Nicole said, I was very interested because since I've been home and completed on parole, I know about the legislation that got passed about earning credits in society while working, but it was never mentioned on what's the criteria for, what's the level of risks or the level of charges, convictions, or how that worked. And I heard a statement about people earn them, but they really don't be told until at the end process, either a violation comes up and then they are warned. But I think if people would know, that would be the more incentive for them to work and continue to work, knowing that they will earn credits to end chop their mandatories or their time down, just as they do in the inside. So y'all can expound on that, how that process works, or when is it notified to the individual that he earns these credits when he starts working?
Okay, I can expound on a little bit of that. In regards to the credits, what we are working on, we are recognizing that may be a challenge in regards to our agents. And
Mr. Nolley, do you mind just introducing yourself and your role?
So sorry.
I apologize.
Yes, yeah. Walter Nolley, I'm the Executive Deputy Director for Division of Parole and Probation. I'm in charge of all the statewide operations for the DPP. I've been working in this field this is my 21st year. What got me into this field was I was always, you're always interested in seeing, how people navigated through the system and how they ended up in a situation that caused them to be incarcerated. I grew up, knew a lot of people who went to prison, was in and out of prison. So it was always something interesting to me. So, I wanted to work in this field to better understand some of the things that went on and try to help as far as building people back up into society so that they could be productive citizens. Because, overall, people make bad choices in life, but we don't believe in that people should be paying for those bad choices, continuously punished for that bad choice. And we recognize that people can rehabilitate, and we're going to actually push and continue to push linking people with services, putting people in positions that they can succeed, in this space, as far as trying to get their lives together and put their lives in a positive format so that they can live productive lives. Ms. Kaeshawn Stweart is an agent that works in DPP along with me. And I just wanted to try to, kind of navigate this process in regards to earned compliance credits. Now, we recognize that from the last meeting, that was a potential gap as far as information that agents should be providing to clients when they're released or under supervision. Those individuals that can earn these earned compliance credits, generally the offenses that exclude individuals from earned compliance credits are honestly mostly your violent offenses. Robbery, assault, all of your sexual offenses, and a few drug offenses. Most of the drug offenses are, volume dealer, kingpin type of offenses. So the majority of the clients that we have earn these credits. What we recognize is that there is a gap in regards to that. And we think we can address that is at the intake process, having some type of document that can be given to individuals as soon as we open a case to say, hey, this is what earned compliance credits are. This is how you earn earned compliance credits. Outlining
Mr. Nolley, if I can really quick, I just want to do just a little check with everybody to let everybody know that if you're not speaking, please turn your phone on mute because we can hear some of your background, and raise your hand. If you know how to raise your hand, you can raise it physically or in the chat when you have questions. So I just want folks to know. I apologize for cutting you off, Mr. Nolley.
No, that's not a problem. So like I was saying, we recognize that could be potentially a gap in regards to how people are notified of these earned compliance credits. So what we hope to do is do that up front and then get a document that lets you know, hey, these are things that you can earn. And then also having the agent reinforce that in their monthly or whatever period of time that they see their clients, based on their risk level. But the offense is what drives individuals as far as saying who can earn these credits. So once we determine who can earn these credits, then the secondary piece to this, and the biggest piece to this, is that the individuals who are under supervision during the months that they are under supervision to the department, they can earn up to 15 days earned compliance credits. And that's meaning that you're not getting arrested. That means that you are reporting to your agent as you're supposed to. If you have a stipulation for drug testing, that would mean that you didn't test positive for any type of illegal substance. If you owe any type of money as far as supervision fees, testing fees, restitution, payment of that or lack of payment of that could be a barrier as far as holding an individual back from earning the credits. Now, we do recognize that some people do, restitution we really can't get around, but supervision fees is well within the realm of the courts and the parole commission to waive those fees. And we encourage individuals under supervision to contact the sentencing authority, let them know, hey, I really can't afford to make these payments. I maybe, I'm unemployed at this point in time. Maybe I'm underemployed and I have a lot of obligations that I'm responsible for at this moment in time. But it's more or less communicating that to the sentencing authority to get those fees waived. Because if the fees are waived, then that takes that entire payment off the table. So then individuals who are actually doing what they're supposed to, not getting in trouble, will earn those credits. Basically what happens is once they earn all of the credits, we have a date And that date is populated automatically in our system that will let us know that, hey, this is what this person will reach what we call ECC abatement date. And when they reach ECC abatement, it's simply that we do not have to ask the permission of the sentencing authority to abate the person's case. Once they reach the ECC abatement date, we notify them that, hey, judge, parole commissioner, this person is no longer on a status of supervision as far as them having to report to us. So essentially, it's like an unsupervised probation or parole for that period of time. The only thing that will reactivate a case is if somebody gets arrested. You know, if you get arrested for a new offense, of course, we're going to notify that, hey, we're going to reactivate supervision in regards to the individual who was arrested. That's the only thing that would hold that up. But the majority of the clients that we have under supervision earn the credits. But the one barrier that could be potentially in the way is this payment of fees. You know, like I said, supervision fees, testing fees. Fines and costs are not generally involved with that. Fines and costs only would be involved if the court orders us to collect the fines and costs. Generally speaking, they generally keep fines and costs out of it. And usually it's supervision fees, testing fees is the majority, and followed by restitution.
Well, so Walter, I don't want to cut you off. I want to say I really appreciate the deep dive into some of the aspects of parole and probation. And I want to get time to introduce Kaeshawn, of course, but Nicole brought up two questions. I was wondering if you could just briefly answer those questions before we go to Kaeshawn. How do we contact the sentencing board? And then what is ECC?
ECC is the acronym for Earned Compliance Credits. And we can provide them, same thing with in regards to, there's a form letter that we can give to individuals under supervision. And the agents can provide that letter to them that will notify them, hey, if you want to get your fees waived, this is how you do that. It's a simple form letter that we have that agents can give out to anyone that's under supervision. Again, recognizing that there potentially is a gap, we're looking to start that process, you know, as far as exit orientations, when individuals are coming out, at intake. We're looking for various points throughout early in supervision at various points throughout their supervision to constantly remind individuals that, hey, you can earn these. And this is a incentive as far as complying with the terms of your supervision so that, you know, it's beneficial. It's a win-win for everybody. It's win-win for us, win-win for the clients that are under supervision to us, because they don't have to worry about us calling them to have to report into an office or report remotely. You know, if they're doing Zoom contacts like we have right now, having to really worry about having to do that. The only thing they would just have to do is just stay out of trouble.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nolley. And I want to give Ms. Stweart, and I want to give her a really good introduction. As an impacted woman, you won't often hear us giving too many shout outs to state agency representatives. And it's no dagger to you, Mr. Nolley, but you know, we love ourselves some Ms. Stweart. Particular because of the way she shows up in the lives of the people we have been working with her, right? Just so for me, to all of the formerly incarcerated people on this call, whatever your negative thoughts are of your probation agent, she is the opposite. And so I want to give her space to first introduce herself really quickly, but also repeat the comment that she put in the chat. And after she speaks, you will, I know people are burning with questions. The chat is already lit up. Mr. Walter and Ms. Kaeshawn, and we'll give space for 2 or 3 minutes for the other partners to talk about the work that they do around probation and parole. And yeah, so let's get to Ms. Stweart.
All right, good evening, everyone. So my path of my walk is a little different, and it's humbling. So I actually, both of my parents, as a matter of fact, all of my relatives, my parents, my grandfather passed away in prison. My mom, one evening she was incarcerated. I thought she had passed away. It was a correctional sergeant. I met him on the bus stop, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was looking for my mom. I said, hey, just looking for her. She was struggling in her addiction during that time. Grew up in the projects, Westport and Cherry Hill. I said, I'm just looking for my mom. And he said to me, I want you to go home and you need to get ready for school tomorrow. Your mom is doing fine. She is at the cut. She's in the women's cut. I was like, at the cut? What? And he said, yeah, she's doing well. She's in the RSEP program. She's clean. She's alive. I cried. And he said, oh, don't cry. She's doing well. I said, I'm crying because I'm happy that she is alive. And I was so excited that that particular correctional sergeant stopped to have a conversation with me that day, 3 o'clock in the morning. Everyone spoke negatively about my life. You know, you're gonna be just like this, or you're gonna be no more than that. You're gonna be, so nothing positive. So I said, I made a commitment. He said to me, go to school and do well. And I want you not to end up on the streets. I want you to do better. And I told him I would. And I said, one day I want to be a correctional officer. I was 14 years old. I said, I want to be a correctional officer. So then once my mom was on parole, okay, she was released. She came home, changed the people, places, and things. And she had her parole officer, and she had some struggles, right? She had a parole officer who she relapsed and she was violated, but I watched how her parole officer helped navigate her and her underage children. And I said, you know, one day I want to be a parole and probation officer. I want to do that thing too, because one thing we have to understand and want to know that we're not just impacting the people that we touch, we also are touching the people and the children and the families that we never get to touch, never get to see, never get to, you know, talk to. So this opportunity to work in this career is more than just coming and showing up every day. We have to show up for the community. We have to show up for everyone in that household, everyone in that community, everyone on that street. So it's more than just coming to work to do a job. It's touching the people for generations and generations. So just to really touch on the question that you all asked last week, and it helps me to improve every time we have this dialogue, because I said, what do I need to do better as an agent? And when we walked away from this camera last week, I realized that that is something different I can modify and change. And that is to have a conversation with my clients when I do that initial interview and that initial intake, is to remind them of that credit, to remind them that, hey, you do get this, but just as that incentive, just as that motivation to do well. Because sometimes just giving that little bit of motivation, that little push, can make all of the difference in that path and in that journey. So, so I appreciate this opportunity. So yes, having that conversation about ECC, having that conversation about credit. So the same way I did when I worked in the jail, you know, we talked about, you know, those dim credits, saying, hey, don't come in here and mess up, you know, don't come in here and go to SAG, because we're going to take away that good time, you know. So that is important, and that's why it is important that we show up here, because showing up here is also going to impact the people that we are serving, because we are here to serve, and that we are here to serve our community, even though we are behind the walls. So absolutely.
There was a question that came up in the chat by OFJ member Erin McLemore. Erin, do you want to ask that question, or would you like me to ask that question? You said something about furlough.
Yeah, you can ask Nicole.
Okay, sure. Erin asked a question kind of right after or before mine. He asked something about how does one get a copy of his original furlough agreement? That's interesting. Well, can you expound on that? Because that's something we haven't heard typically, is the furlough agreement.
How's everybody? My name is Aaron. I'm with Out for Justice. I'm gonna be honest, I'm nervous because I'm on parole. And I put my name in there not knowing that I was gonna come on here and see people that could look my name up. But that's my beef with y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like, your job is my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you make a personal mistake, I'm going to prison, you know, for your personal mistake. But my question has to do, when I made parole in 2011, it came with an agreement that I had to sign. And I was just wondering if I could get a copy of that agreement.
I see what you're saying. You're talking about your parole, your release
agreement.
When I was sitting there, they called it a furlough agreement. I remember that.
Okay, yes, you can get a copy. You're saying you just want a copy of what you signed when you were. So I worked in an institution for 10 years before I was an agent. So you're saying that when you was doing your home plan with your case manager, you sat down and you reviewed all of the conditions of your release and you signed your release.
I wasn't getting released home though. I was getting released to another jurisdiction.
Okay. And so you're saying you want to see that condition, which you
a copy of that, yes. Mm-hmm. So maybe that goes to a larger question, Ms. Stweart. And you might not be able to answer it now, but we always tell our folks to get copies of everything they sign, all the agreements, whatever the conditions are. And maybe this is something for the agency to think about. Is there a centralized way that a person who is on parole or probation, you know, if we want our court documents, we go downtown to the district courthouse and we pull up, we might have to pay 10 cents for every page, but we can get it, right? Is there a ecosystem that exists in probation and parole where copies, signed agreements of people, whether they are being transferred from one institution to the next, wherever probation and parole is involved with our loved ones in terms of signing of documentation, is there a place that we can go back 2 years from now and find those agreements?
So are you referring, so if a person is still actively on supervision, so let's say you're actively on supervision, you say, hey, I lost my paperwork. So sometimes that happens. So 2 situations. So to go back to the gentleman who asked the question before. So usually you'll come in and let's say, and so I know from both sides, client or come in and they may not have their documents. Most times, more often, and if the client comes in, because we review that, you know, we sit down, your first time you come in, we sit down, let's say we are supposed to. So let's talk about what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to go through that with you, go over those conditions and explain it. Actually, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns about your supervision, and then we talk about that. So let's say you say, hey, can I have a copy of that? Most of the times we'll get up and make you a copy. Why? We want to make sure you understand, I understand, we got the signatures. Because now in this virtual world, what has happened is there's no signatures, right? So sometimes like, I remember it was on Zoom. So we'll say, okay, let's get those signatures now that our offices are open. We'll get those signatures or we will make you a copy. Especially if you ask for why, because we want to make sure we on the same page and you're on the same page and everybody has the understanding. So yes, you can ask for, we won't have a problem with getting it. And if the agent say, I don't have it, or we don't have a paper, or just ask for the supervisor. Say, well, can I see your supervisor? Because I don't have it. I want to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. We all on the same page because I don't want no problem, right? And so a lot of times we will do that. That is not a problem. That's in that circumstance. So that even if it's your court document, more times than not, we will have it. Now, sometimes we don't have it yet. It's coming, or we got to go pick it up ourselves. in the virtual world now, it's been a delay. So we have to go pick it up. Sometimes it's en route, it's going to be mailed to us. So sometimes you all can get the court orders quicker than we can. But we go down there and we get them too. You know, we'll go get them and bring them because we need that to supervise our clients. And we need to see that contract that our client made with the courts. We need that. We know you need that. So that should never, ever be a problem.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stweart. I want to, right before we bring in Elizabeth, one of our members said, Cecilia said, Ms. Stweart, it depends on the probation officer, and it does. And the whole reason that we're doing these series of discussions with the Department of Probation and Parole is for you to hear from the professionals about what should be happening, right? You are hearing from Mr. Walter Nolley, who is at the top of the food chain, who is pretty much setting the tone for how his agency should be operating, right? We know that that is not necessarily happening, and that is why we're here, right? To find ways to, talk to the agency and say, wow, in writing, Mr. Nolley, you are saying this should be happening. However, Mr. Nolley, this is what is actually happening in practice, right? And so we know we're not dealing with a perfect agency. No system in this country is a perfect agency. But you're right, Cecilia, that it depends on the agent. But what Ms. Stweart just told you is, and this is what you all hear me say, when you need email addresses and contact information and you need your documentation, if that agent is refusing to do that, Ms. Stweart literally repeated what I say, but she said it in a less aggressive way. She said, well, can I please speak to your supervisor because I really need that. And that is okay for you all to say. That should not get anybody violated. That's just how professionals operate. People want their paperwork.
And let me say this, we're so savvy now. We uploading everything. It's a click, 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 click. And this should not be an issue. And now we're encouraging our clients like, hey, you have an email address? It's for me, it's for you. You're gonna need it for your life. You're gonna need it for your entitlements. You're gonna need it for employment. You're gonna need it for your SSI, your Social Security. So it is about the approach. So it's how you talk to your clients, is making sure you let your clients know it's not just for parole and probation, it's to help you get moving with the future wave of your life.
Yes, ma'am.
That being said, we're uploading everything. So if we don't have it, we're going to get it. And then it's going to be in a virtual file. So we have a virtual file now. So if there is something that's being asked of us, we should be able to click, scan, and upload it and send it. But what we're trying to do is make sure that we are seeing our clients face to face, because we want to have that face-to-face encounter, because we want to see, we're vested in our clients' growth. And a lot of times we don't get that over the phone. It's a disconnect with the pandemic sometimes. It has been a disconnect. So we are trying to build that rapport because we really want our clients to be successful. And I know in this parole and probation, almost all of us have somebody that we know, that we love, that we care about, that's in the same journey. Almost all of us. So although it may not seem that way, we really do. So we know the importance of making sure that we are dotting I's and crossing T's, and we will want someone to do it for our family members as well, because that string or that rope is short, because along the line, someone connected to our bloodline is in this same journey. So, definitely, if that is the situation, say, do you mind email address? May I speak to your supervisor? Because I want to make sure that my loved one or my family member is successful in this, because it's a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate you,
Kaeshawn.
Miss.
Not to
Miss
cut you
Stewart.
off, Nicole. I just
Go
want
ahead.
to say some people have less questions in the chat. I want to say I see them and we will get to them so that you're all heard. But Aaron, I see that your hand is raised and this whole conversation came from your question. So I want to honor that. So is there something you'd like to, raise right now?
Yes, I wanted to ask Ms. Stewart. I kind of wanted to ask a big question because I did reveal the personal information. I'm on parole. Honestly, I didn't expect this discussion to go in this direction. I didn't plan on being so personal. But I would like to ask a bigger question, one that concerns me, not only as someone who's on parole, but then as a member of the community. Like, I heard somebody pose a question to an oil executive one time, and the oil executive agreed that if you're in an industry that most people agrees is in need of reform, that you should be able to enumerate the reasons or the ways in which you would make yourself irrelevant. I'm trying to clean that question up. Like, parole and probation, how would you make yourself go away? Like, no doubt you understand that your place in society is, I don't want to be disrespectful, but you guys, you do the dirty work, put it like that. So that's like, you might ask the cops, or you might ask a big oil executive, but I'm asking parole and probation, like, within your organization, when you guys get together, what do you do? What do you agree is the best way to make your organization irrelevant? Like, does that make sense?
Well, and I appreciate your question. And I will say, and I hear you speaking with passion, and I can feel that there's some hurt and some disappointment from so many different areas of parole and probation, and I understand that. And I also understand in a lot of my clients, and even some of the people that I know, being on parole and probation helped to save their lives, because some people care. Some people went the extra mile. Some persons have said that, without parole and probation, I probably would not be alive today. I probably would not be in certain jobs. I probably would not be with my family. I probably would not be in recovery. So a lot of times, we may drop the ball, we may lift the ball, but we look at it as how we're going to move forward together. Because at any given moment or at any given day, the shift, things may shift to left or to the right. But how do we lift each other up to move forward is what we're really trying to do. We're never going to be irrelevant, but how do we take away the things that make the negative part of what we do irrelevant?
But don't you want to be irrelevant?
Oh no, because I'm here today because a parole and probation agent cared. I survived because they cared. I lived because they cared. I didn't give up.
Recording in progress.
So I want to shift gears to some of the other questions. I want to thank everyone for sharing so far. I think we're really unpacking some interesting topics and maybe coming at issues from different angles, and that's important to explore. I want to elevate this comment from Cecilia before I move into the questions from Felicia. So Cecilia says it's more so the unprofessional ways that probation officers have behaved when clients come in. I've been denied supervisors several times when asked. And so that is, Cecilia's experience. And thank you for sharing that. I want to go to Felicia's question. So I'll just ask it since you put it in the chat. But if you did not get your first step credits on time before you were released, will it come off your probation time? Would anyone like to answer that?
Can we pivot that to Mr. Nolley?
Recording in progress.
Mr. Nolley, would you like to take that question from Felicia? I think he may have dropped off, actually.
Something's going on with my internet as well.
Kaeshawn or Antoine, would you have any insight on that question? Or we can also put a pin in it for Mr. Nolley to return.
Well, let's hold that question until Mr. Nolley comes back.
Sorry,
And
Nolley.
I would like, if we can, could we pivot a little bit to some more of the impacted voices? And I know Kiana is at a training, so I wanted to try to lift her voice up if she had space. If she didn't have space, I wanted to.
Well, there's actually a question from Eric. I'm sorry.
Eric? Oh, yes, go
right?
ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to elevate those voices. So Eric asked, when did the earned compliance credits start on the outside? And can it be backdated if you were eligible before right now?
That's a good question.
So I know Mr. Nolley is, I know y'all said that he fell off, but the earned compliance credits are being earned already. So it's not that you're not earning them. They're given. They're already given. So, and I think we kind of talked about that before. So you're earning them throughout your probation period. So what happens is, let's just say, and I think I gave the scenario before, if you owe money. So if you owe money and you owe supervision fees or restitution, then though the credit that you earned is then deducted or taken away. You know, if you, let's say you miss your supervision check-in with your agent, you've already earned it. So it's like, it's given up front. So you're already given the credits up front. Then they are removed once that period of the month come, at the end of the month, and they, you know, you go back, the agent go back and say, oh, okay, so let's review the case. Oh, this client missed this check-in day, or this client didn't do the urinalysis, or the urinalysis came up with, you know, result.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ms. Stewart. Because some people didn't hear when you talked about them. And I want to also lift up what Mr. Nolley said in the beginning, was that they want to do better at making sure that they let us know in the beginning. So this is a work in progress, right? This is one of the, you know, very few times that Mr. Nolley has probably been to a community event since COVID. COVID has pushed us far, far away from each other. And so what we heard from Mr. Nolley is that from the top, they are making a commitment to look at that process in a better way, more intentional way, and to figure out how they could send a memo to other agents or have a conversation with agents to say, listen, this is a process that exists. How can we make sure that we are centering this and letting our loved ones know that this exists from the onset, right? So I just wanted to make sure that is clear. And I wanted to say to Earn, I hear you. I hear your abolitionist voice when you say, how do you go away, right? That's the same way we think about jails. Like, how do we shut them down, right? So I hear your abolitionist framework coming out. After, I want to pivot to Elizabeth, because Elizabeth is new to us, and she's showing up in our space with our formerly incarcerated women. And I want you all to know who she is and let her introduce herself briefly and talk about what brought her to the work of helping impacted women, and kind of talking about, you know, how she got here and her role. We know Elizabeth is kind of, the torch is being passed in a sense from Mary Denise Davis, but we do want to know you, who you are, what brought you to this work, and how you're centering the voices of impacted women through your work. So let's give Elizabeth some time. And she also answered a question. Somebody asked about the sentencing board, and in the chat, Elizabeth gave an email to contact So make sure you touch on that too, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Just in that chat, I just gave the email address there of Melissa Cox. She's like the program manager at the Parole Commission. And she's always extremely helpful to us in our work at Prepare. It seemed like what was being talked about was the Parole Agreement, which is like a contract, if you like, and that does get lodged with the court, but I would imagine they would have a copy there at the Parole Commission. So that just might be a potential route for getting a copy easily. I don't know. It's worth a try, but I've always found her really responsive. So I'm with an organization called Prepare. I have a new colleague who's on the call with me today as well, Unita. She just started with us last week. We are a small nonprofit. We're currently under Fusion partnerships, but moving toward becoming a 501c3. And the mission is empowering people to make their best case for parole. And the underlying idea is that the parole system is underused for decarceration. And the reason is there's almost no information given out about the opportunity for early release through the parole system. There's no support given with developing a parole packet that sets out a person's best case for parole. And to have a good case for parole really means a good reentry plan. And there's no support given with that ahead of parole hearings. What reentry support that DPSCS gives kicks in 120 days before release. That's way too late to be of any relevance for having a shot at early release through the parole system. So our organization, beginning in MCIW, is working with people one-on-one. We recently started going back in person after 2 years with just using the mail and using the phone. And we help people put together parole packets. We reach out to reentry service providers that look like they might be a good fit for them and forge those connections so that the reentry packet has a really solid reentry plan in it. And it's something, we're trying to make it difficult for the Parole Commission to say no by giving them a great alternative to saying, no, you just stay and do more time, or come back in 3 years, or come back in 4 years and we'll hear you again. We're trying to put the best case there. Yeah, and that's the work we're doing at the moment. I think it should be a service that's available to the men as well, but that's further down the line because it's quite intensive work just to get the women covered, so that the initial goal is to try and get to the point that anyone in MCIW who wants that support can get it. Happy to answer any questions about the work.
Thank you.
We don't provide reentry services ourselves because we connect people with the reentry service providers. We're on the pre-release side, just trying to put that strong case before the Parole Commission.
Elizabeth, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, we need that. Some of the women on the last membership call wanted to know how is Prepare centering the voices of formerly incarcerated women, right? How is Prepare preparing formerly incarcerated women to then go back and do the same work that was done for them?
Well, a lot of the work is already kind of done on the inside. So we have a colleague who's working with us, and really I learned a lot about parole hearing preparation from her because she was already helping her friends and anyone really on the pod in putting those parole packets together. So the work was kind of going on informally already in MCIW, and a lot of it could be done there. There's certain pieces of it which is harder to do from the inside, and that is there's an opportunity to do a conference call with one parole commissioner ahead of people's hearing, and obviously that's something that can't be done from there. And then also just connecting with family members, doing a bit of Google research, that kind of thing, to develop the reentry plan. So we're trying to support that work that's already going on the inside, with kind of doing it within the prison as well, but also the piece that has to happen kind of on the outside.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, because it's not often that the voices of women and just formerly incarcerated people are centered, right? And so you said it several times. The work is already happening. And what you all are doing is using your skills and your ability to be free to help push that work along. So we really appreciate that. Can you talk about some successes? Do you have any women who are on their way home, in any ways for other formerly incarcerated people to get involved in the work at Prepare?
Yeah, so we started, we just founded the organization last year and began working with volunteers, training people as parole advocates. And those first group of advocates, those in 2022, that's when those cases have sort of coming to fruition. That the conference call that I mentioned is happening, and that happens 1 to 2 months before the person goes for their parole hearing. And so those cases are coming through now, and we've had some success. And we would like to say that even if that person doesn't get parole at that hearing, that process of preparing and helping build those reentry connections, that will go on. We will make sure that those reentry connections stay in place for either the next parole hearing or the mandatory, so that we sort of stay connected in that respect. So yeah, the way people could get involved, I'll put the email in there, but we would be happy to have more parole advocates, quite frankly. We're working, it takes a little team basically to work on each case. And we are trying to train people in this work. You don't need to be a lawyer. It's not, the Parole Commission isn't a court. It's not necessarily that I mean, that's not a bad background to have for the work, but there's also other backgrounds that are relevant for the work. So if people want to reach out to us, we would be happy to have you involved as parole advocates. I honestly see the only way that the need will be met, given that this isn't work that the public defender does. So there's not, well, the university law clinics do it a little bit, but it's at very small numbers. So the need is huge, actually, in terms of how many people would want these services. And the only way I can see that need would be met would be engaged citizens being trained up as parole advocates. I don't see any way that you would, in the long term, meet that scale.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate the work that was done, one, by the impacted women, and two, by your committed volunteers.
Oh, sorry, Nicole, I would just say some of our volunteers are formerly incarcerated, and I think they are bringing particular skills to it. And then some others are family members of currently incarcerated people. So we have I have a couple who we're helping them develop the parole packet for their family member. And then another one, they're actually helping someone else who they don't know. And both ways work.
Where we were going, for us, it's, and I think Twan can agree, and I'll pivot to Twan after this, is that when non-impacted people are showing up in our spaces and are helping us, because it takes all, right? Our request is to center our voice, right? It should be our voices guiding the work, similar to what we do at Out for Justice. Formerly incarcerated people guide the work. They're in the strategy calls. They are in the strategy meetings, right? They're in the forming of the programming. Even if you think they don't understand, they're still there because they have, it is their voice that should be guiding the work, because they will know about loopholes or barriers that non-impacted people won't even think about. So no, that's exactly where we're going. Twan, I want to pivot to you as a panelist to discuss, and then after Twan, I would love for Cecilia to give her comments about the discussion. Go ahead, Twan.
Yeah, Elizabeth, it's good to see you, because we had been connected, and I apologize, just so much been moving and going and getting back to community things. But exactly, we had to bring our experiences, because we've been doing this for so long throughout these processes, and the experiences and totalities that of the impacted, but also the families that being negated from behind the wall being impacted. Looking at, and one of the things a couple of years ago that like, well, now you know from 2015, me, Nicole, and all us will always say, allow us to be involved with exit reentry process, because the faces, the relationships, the language, you know, and then the success that now that we on this side to be voices for that, you know, and then like Mr. Stewart, you know, there's like some like you, but I wish many of them was like you know, and had the passion and drive that you have, you know, but like until we able to like build these relationships so families can really understand what's being built to help, and then tell those behind the wall that's being impacted, these are the people that the work that's being built to actually help you succeed. And these are the resources that's there that you can have like some type of hope to fall through that anxiety when getting released and walking in like Chase Street, Guilford, the one up by Wabash, or any of these places, because it's anxiety and trauma coming out of high levels and then coming back into a city that's at an excruciating high level and then being stigmatized, you know. So like we have a long process of training and setting people down with us for the first 90 days and creating goal setting plans on how to just navigate and re-identify back into the community with themselves, how to think, how to moderate emotions, and like being able to like relate and being responsible and building self-worth for your accountability. So like I say, this whole process I think is a thing of impact, but shows where those who impacted can heal others that's being impacted.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear with Aaron, the space that we hold at Out for Justice is a safe space. And I would not dare allow any agency to come on our call and use names and information to the detriment of my people. And so I want you to know that when I'm around, you are safe, right? When I'm around.
I really appreciate that, yo, because I ain't gonna lie, like I put my whole name on that and I look on that, it was like the parole. I was like, yo,
that's because you didn't
PO.
read what this was all about then.
I
But thank
definitely
you for being here.
stopped saying what I was going to say. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
No, but this is what we're bringing formerly incarcerated people and impacted people to this space. This is why Mr. Nolley showed up for the second time, because there was a more intense discussion on the first OFJ call that you missed, right? And so
I'm ready to say I'm mad I missed the
yeah. So this is not the space where Mr. Nolley or any agency people that we bring on will take your name.
Nicole, you know I respect how you move, and I heard how you introduced the lady. You know what I'm saying? That's respect for me off the break. But to be honest with you,
I just wanted to make that clear. The other thing is, Mr. Nolley, I hope you heard Twan. I hope you hear Aaron when they talk about the anxiety of engaging your office. It's an inherent anxiety that exists when we get off that bus and walk to your, these offices that you are ultimately managing. And so, it's our hope that through these discussions, you're really listening and learning the ways in which you can go back to your agents and talk about how they need to consider people's anxiety and feelings. And so when a person is sitting next to you sweating and anxious, it's not because they did something wrong or they're, holding something. It's because their anxiety is high. They are fearful, right? They are afraid to go back to jail. They're afraid to say the wrong thing or ask the right question that can get them sent back. So that's what that comes from. I want to get to Eric and then Cecilia, because Eric, I want to elevate the voice of Eric. He's been a very committed member and has been very diligent and patient and waiting. And so go ahead, Eric.
Thank you. I really didn't want to double back, but I never got
No,
my
go ahead.
question
Double back.
cleared. Ms. Stewart, she said that these credits is given to you, right? Before you even make parole or probation or whatever. Parole. But the thing Mr. Nolley said that you earn these while you out, where by working or doing, extra things. So I was confused with that. And for myself, I'm no longer on parole, but I did everything that was necessary, that was put in front of me for myself, and also that was recommended from my parole officer. And I don't know, was I any eligible for these credits, or I don't know, just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, like I was saying, the first line of eligibility is what offense you were convicted of. That's the first level as far as saying, okay, who's eligible, who's not eligible. We have the list of offenses that, according to the law, are ineligible for earned compliance credits.
Mr. Nolley, is that the COMA law or the Department of Probation and Parole regulations?
That is actually statute.
Okay, so thank you. You're giving us something to change.
Yeah, that is actually in statute. That's codified.
So we need to change that on the policy end, because Mr. Nolley, every offense that you said, assault, certain drug possessions, violent offenses, you're talking about me, right? You're telling me that when I was on parole and probation, I wouldn't have qualified. You're talking to my members and you're telling us that even though, and no, I wanted you to make that distinction so that we could be clear where you come in and where the state comes in. And that's why policy is so important for OFJ.
Yeah,
but those factors immediately disqualify at least 80% of us on the call. But go ahead.
Yeah, I said that's something that the legislature, when they drew up the law, that's exactly what they placed into the law as far as dictating who is eligible for these credits. And then you have the administration of the credits. What Ms. Stewart was speaking to was that every individual who didn't, let's say now you qualified for these credits. You earn those credits every month unless you do something that is considered a violation of the terms of your supervision, then we take those credits away. And, as far as taking the credits away, could be if you get arrested, get arrested, then you take the credits away. You fail to report to your agent. That's something that they can take your credit away. Let's say you have drug testing. A drug tested you tested positive for, let's say, marijuana. That could be the basis of taking those credits away. But everyone, while they're under supervision, the minute they are placed under supervision with us, if they are eligible to receive credits, they automatically are calculated every month unless an agent goes in and takes those credits away. And a supervisor has to also approve that to take the credits away. So it's not just something that's arbitrary. We have to see those documents in regards to why are you taking these credits away from this individual? But everyone automatically earns those the minute you're placed under supervision if you are eligible.
So I want to elevate, Felicia's question. So these credits you get from being on probation are different from the credit criteria in the First Step Act. Can you speak to that?
I'm not 100% familiar with the First Step Act, but I can certainly look it up and have more of a discussion in regards to how we play into that at all, but I first would need to do some research in regards to the First Step Act. Is this something that's been already passed, or is it in the current legislative package?
Yes, it's in the current legislative package, if I'm not mistaken. Because we're not talking
Okay.
about federal, we're talking about state. So
Yep.
I feel like it's something that is, if not vetoed by the governor.
Okay.
Yeah. Am I correct? The person who asked that question.
Felicia, is that correct? What Nicole said?
Can somebody check the chat?
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
The First Step Act, I really can't believe you all don't know about the First Step Act. All of
Are
the
we
prisons
talking about
is
state
just
level, federal level?
federal. This is all about state that we're
Federal
talking about
conversation.
now.
This is not a federal conversation.
This is all
So,
about, I shouldn't even be here
state
then.
level conversation. Yes,
Because
ma'am. I
when you
apologize.
emailed me about probation, parole and probation, I'm thinking it's for parole and probation. The
Right. So
state only gets parole, federal
level of-
only gets probation.
every level of government has a probation and parole. So you have a federal probation and parole for individuals who did federal time. And then on the state level, for people who did time in the Department of Corrections, that every state across the country has its own probation and parole. And there's a federal probation and parole in every state in the country as well, Ms. Felicia.
So you all don't help the people that's going to the Monument Street halfway house at all.
That's
No,
not
we
true. This discussion. Oh, you want to go ahead, Mr. Nolley.
no, I'm saying we don't have any
Jurisdiction.
we don't have we don't have any involvement as far as jurisdiction over that particular. That is federal.
Right.
So that's
So, Ms.
prisons.
Felicia, what I want you to know is that it is not that, and I hope you can see me as the executive director of Out for Justice. And I hope that you continue to come on these calls so you can understand a little bit more about who we are and what we do. It's not that we don't help.
My last language changed.
I'm sorry?
I've been to your meetings. I'm part of you. I've been there.
Oh, okay. So it's not that we don't help people who are on a federal level. What you just did was trigger now. We need to get the federal probation and parole people on our calls. And we need to get them answering questions about their system and how they are showing up for our people. So all of these calls, all of the work we do, Ms. Felicia, is generated around educating formerly and currently incarcerated people about the systems that they will encounter. Just so happened that I've been being inundated with conversations from my members walking in the office or emails about the Maryland's probation and parole system. And so connected to the work that we do on the state level policy work, it was important to bring Mr. Nolley and Ms. Stweart on. But the next membership call can very well be about the federal system and how we can help and support our sisters and brothers navigate, because we do have a lot of members who are on the federal level as well. We just don't have enough active members engaging in the federal process like we need to. So that's to say we need you more, Miss Felicia, to pump that out and let us know, like, no, you need to be talking about what's happening on the federal level as well. We need that, so I appreciate
I'm surprised thousands of inmates were just released over the last.
I know, and we're gonna get to them. I know you're right. You're right, Miss Felicia. So keep me accountable, keep us accountable. And we ready for the work. As long as people are ready to get this work done, I'm here for it. I can't do it by myself though.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I want to say quick 10-minute warning. So maybe in about like 7 minutes, we should start to wind down. But Kiana, I want to give the mic to you because you raised some important questions. Would you like to ask it yourself, or do you want me to ask?
Yeah, so I'll ask. So the The removal of the credits is an adverse action to a person who is on probation or parole. My question is there an appeals process for individuals, and how and are they notified at the point where their credits are removed via some type of documentation, a letter or something letting them know that those credits have been removed? And then is there an appeals process or a grievance process or some type of process that they can then engage in to then debate or have, or debate or have that decision be appealed, or, because every adverse action in the judicial process has some type of appeals process. And that is definitely an adverse action to remove somebody's good time or diminution credits.
Okay, good question. Typically, when you talk about removal of credits, generally speaking, there's an action that precedes that taking away of credits. Like, let's say, for example, you fail to report for supervision. An agent should be giving an individual who failed to report an intervention. And the intervention is sort of like an informal, kind of what reminded you of when you were incarcerated, a ticket. So there's a whole entire appeals process in regards to that. If you want to say, no, I've reported that day, I did not fail to report, I want to appeal that. There's a whole entire process in regards to that. And the agent will give you that process when they impose whatever the intervention that they impose for that technical violation. Like you said, you failed to report, you tested positive. They are doing that. So you have an appeals process of that. If, let's say, you win your appeal and they say, no, she reported, that's off your record. So as an agent, I don't have anything as far as a basis to take your credit away at the end of the month. So you get where I'm coming from. There's an action that it happens well before you get there to where your credits are being taken away. But the agent should be informing the clients under supervision every month what their status is in regards to their good time credits. And let's say it happens, because they have until the end of the month to take it away. Let's say, your report day is the first day, let's say it's the first Friday of every month. So they may take it away, the 30th, man, fell on a Tuesday. You're coming in next Friday. That next Friday, they should be discussing with you what happened the previous month. Say, hey, I took away your credit. This is why I took those credits away. But you should know well before they take that away why they're gonna take those credits away. And like I said, there's an action that well precedes that. So it shouldn't happen in a vacuum. You should be already notified and know, hey, I may miss my credits this month. The lion's share of the clients that we have under supervision, generally speaking, lose their credits due to lack of payment on payment obligations. But again, if those fees are waived up front, that's off the table. And if at any point in time throughout supervision, you can petition the courts, parole commission, hey, I need my fees waived. As far as this is when I'm talking about fees, I'm talking about supervision fees. They waive them from the moment that they waive those fees, every other subsequent month that you have no payment obligation, that would be off the table. So you wouldn't have to worry about having that hanging over your head to say, oh, well, I'm going to miss my credits this month due to indigency. Because, we recognize that everybody can't get a job right off the bat. Some people do, but also some people are underemployed. If you're working at a job and you're making $7 an hour, let's say you have an apartment, you have other obligations that you're taking care of, you may not have $50 a month to pay supervision fee. That's something that should be told to the court, told the parole commission, saying, hey, this is what I'm up against. Please waive my fees. speaking generally, the parole commission and the courts are very sympathetic and generally speaking will waive fees when you present your case to them in regards to supervision fees. And we're even refining that process when we get orders where a judge didn't indicate whether they impose the fee or waive the fee. You know, they can check either box, and they should be checking one of those boxes. So in cases like that, we're also going to ask the court, you know, Your Honor, you didn't say what you wanted. What is it? Are we imposing fees or are we waiving? And sometimes judges, you know, they're humans. They're just going through, clearing their docket. They didn't check the box. And they'll just simply say, no, I didn't intend for them to pay fees. Check it, and we won't impose it.
Do we have any final comments? Kiana, do you have any additional thoughts? I see your wheels turning a little bit. We can't hear you.
No, I don't want to. I'm sorry, my phone rang in between. I don't want to take up too much more time. I still think, Mr. Nolley, while you answer that question in chief, like you answered the majority of the question, I still feel like there's still, and the reason why I wanted a more of a process, more of a process, because even though you're talking about like the best case scenario or what normally happens, there are people like myself who nothing normal ever happens in their life, and they're always the exception to every rule, and things actually things actually happen to them out of the thin air, right? And so there are people that exist that, I know, like for me, in my case, restitution is an issue. And, it was a lot of concerns and a lot of elements around our restitution. So in my case, I believe that, my credits have been taken from me, but I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how that would have happened or if it would have happened because I didn't receive any notification about it. So yeah, that's one thing. And then I also want to talk a little about community service in lieu of restitution. Does your office recommend that, or how can folks go around getting that if they need to? Is that a motion that our lawyers have to put in, or is that something we can advocate with parole and probation to be able to do that? Two questions, I know. Can you hear me?
No, I didn't hear. You were
Oh, you didn't
breaking
hear me?
up.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
No, it might be my connection.
I think it's your connection. You always got that wonky connection. Yeah, I think it's your connection. I'll type it in the, we only have 1 minute, so I'll reserve for another time.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it appears to be having some audio issues, but with the time that we have left, I was hoping to wind down, but also if you are a guest here tonight and you are in some situation where you're working around this topic, would you mind leaving your contact information in the chat if you are comfortable with that, so that maybe people have questions, they can reach out to you. If you're comfortable leaving your email, for example, I think that could be helpful. But Nicole, any last words from Out for Justice before we sign off for tonight?
I'll just take 30 seconds, and I just wanted to make sure, Cecilia, did you have any comment or any 30 seconds, because I know I wanted to give you some space so I can yield my time to
you can go ahead. I'll cover next meeting.
Okay.
Thank everyone though.
Yeah, we just hope to be the co-conductors to educating our people and getting the information they need. And I know that we had a lot of good questions in the chat. I want to acknowledge Iman, who is the executive director of Bolt Action Legal Team.
No, Nicole, I think you're cutting out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
So that they can and she had some really strategic questions, some legal questions in the chat, and I hope we were able to answer them. And if we were not, please make sure, Matt, that you copy and paste those questions so that we can get that to the department. Amon talked about some growing trends that BALT is seeing with the ways in which people are being, given fines and fees are put on them as a part of their post-conviction agreement. And so I want to make sure that she knows that I saw that and we will, be here to attack that. And I just want to say to all the members, like, stay involved, stay engaged. These are the conversations that we must be at the table, right? We must be here talking about these issues, and that I will continue to bring the folks make decisions about our lives every day to these meetings. And it's through you, your concerns, your conversations, your questions that generate the next educational opportunity, that generates the next way that we set our free from criminal legal systems. So thank you all for coming. Stay involved, continue to educate yourself, continue to engage others, and continue to empower the people around you to also get involved in this work, because you can't afford not to.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And for anyone who wants to stay in community with us, we will do this every month. But you can follow Out for Justice, look them up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, @OutForJustice, outforjustice.org. Also, Baltimore Action Legal Team can be found at Balt Legal, or Baltimore Action Legal Team on Facebook. This was recorded. It will be on YouTube this week, so look out for that. I want to thank all of our gracious, guests and participants for being here today. I know sometimes it also got a little personal, so thank you for being vulnerable, sharing your own experiences and putting that on display. It's really powerful, but necessary for the work. And I won't keep anyone too long. So yeah, please have a good night. And I hope you felt like you learned something today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Out for Justice.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Have a peaceful week.
Thanks all.
Thank you.